The Alpha Sessions.
Hi, this is Alpha Sessions, and today we are on air with Shalini. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to comment, first of all, on the look. It's a look.
Thank you.
I love the jewellery, I love the sunglasses, everything. You're really, bringing the kind of sunshiny vibes in today.
I literally opened my curtain this morning. I was like, it's so grey. We're going to add some sun today with the sunglasses. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just always just trying to be expressionate.
Yeah.
That's like how I describe my style. Just like trying to be as expressionate as possible.
Yeah, like style, like songwriting, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How did you start songwriting? As something that you've always done from when you were little, or did you have siblings that were kind of in music as well? Or
No. Music was never encouraged for me. It was very shunned upon. As a British Indian, my parents really wanted me to be successful in a career that wasn't music. And I mean, I've sung my whole life, and I've been in the choir at school, but I used to write loads of stories when I was 5 years old, and I used to write these little stories and hide it under my bed because I didn't want anyone in my family to take the mick out of me. So I used to do it in secret, and it wasn't until I think I was about 23, which was in lockdown. It wasn't until then that I actually started to write music. But the first proper song I wrote was I Love You, which you're going to hear later. And that was in December 2023. So I say it's weird because it's you can say, oh, I initially started writing here and it was a really intentional thing. I think I've always dipped in and out of music unintentionally and through just my love of music, because I would write poems, I constantly journaled, I'd just be writing, and it's that escapism you get from music, at least for me, where you fantasize about being in this world and being able to express yourself. And I feel I very much am an expressive person through everything I do. So that's kind of how songwriting came about for me.
yeah, it's interesting you say about the escapism, because I think sometimes when you're when you're really young, and obviously other people are so in charge of your life, and your whole day is governed by other people's schedules. And it's so cool to be able to just write yourself into a fantasy situation, and all of a sudden the world's your oyster.
Oh, honestly, and that's the thing that I love most about music is the storytelling aspect of it all. And I think that's why I resonate a lot more with the old school music in terms of soul music. I love Etta James, I love Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Amy Winehouse, the greats. And even nowadays, I mean, you've got Billie Eilish, who does it really well, Tyler the Creator, I'm obsessed with.
All storytellers. All storytellers.
Kanye, they're literally all storytellers, and it's you're stepping into a world, and I love the feeling of that. And it really goes down to me talking about the escapism of it all, and when you're able to just escape and express yourself, I think there's so much beauty behind it.
So the ultimate freedom, right?
Yeah.
Did you have that style of music, so the kind of old soul kind of Motown vibes, was that around you growing up, in your household, or did one of your parents have a CD that you just latched onto? Or
Michael Jackson. It was a lot of Indians can probably relate to this, or a lot of British Indians can relate to this. When it came to pop music and Western music, Michael Jackson was always played in every Indian household. And I think it's probably because it's quite similar to Bollywood in the sense how he used to have a full show, and it was the dancing, the outfits and everything. So Michael Jackson was it for me. And then it was when I was growing up as well, my music was influenced heavily by my oldest brother. and he used to play a lot of R&B, Beyonce, Whitney Houston for me as well.
Again, it's very maximalist artists as well. Like there's no like even everything from like the costumes, the choreography, like it's all go big or go home. And even though I wouldn't have necessarily automatically thought of Michael Jackson and Bollywood like next to each other, it makes complete sense.
It does.
Like now that you mention it, Did you find like growing up in like an Indian household, was your artistic interests like encouraged, or did you have to kind of fight for your journey a bit?
I've had to fight for my journey because I think it's different if like being in India, and if you were like in Mumbai, for instance, where Bollywood is like massive, then it's something that is encouraged by Indians. But being a first generation British Indian and my parents are migrants here, it's for them, they definitely would have had the insecurity of wanting their child to be successful because they've had to sacrifice so much to be in this country. And I fully appreciate that, and it's something that, like, as any parent, they're going to worry for their child. And when you look at music, it's an unstable career and there's no certainty behind it. So it was definitely something that was like, oh no, you don't need to think about that. And it was just looked at like something fun to do.
Like that's a nice hobby.
Yeah. But even, it's really interesting because a lot of the times, like hobbies aren't really encouraged in like British Indian households, or it's because like a lot of the times it's just the focus is on being successful.
Right.
So I really had to like
financially,
yeah. And it goes back to that like insecurity of like you want to be safe in a country where you want to be accepted. So if you're financially stable, then everything else will be fine. So I really had to like fight for myself, and I've gone on a massive healing journey, which you're also going to hear in my song I Love You, because for me, it was really about positioning myself mentally in order to accept who I am. And I'd been doing so many things in terms of my occupation and just even how I would act. It was like I was pleasing everyone else. And I think a lot of people can relate to the need to people please and to feel accepted by someone, and that's essentially why you people please. And I was trying to feel accepted by my family, but then I had to sit down, do the inner healing, and be like, well, what do I actually want to do? And the only thing I've ever wanted to do is to make music, is to sing. And that's why I wrote I Love You, because then I was able to accept myself and be like, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, it doesn't matter what anyone else says, because no one else is going to show up for yourself like you are, and you just need to accept who you are. And so I like, well, I love who you are. I love everything about you, and it like you are a bold, outgoing, expressionate person, and it's like just be that person.
Did you find that voice, that kind of inner voice, was like, if you've spent quite a lot of time people pleasing, as myself, like a recovering people pleaser, you find your inner voice kind of gets quieter the less you listen to it, because why would it waste its energy keeping on trying to talk to you if you won't listen? And sometimes it takes a little bit of time and a bit of like excavation for that voice to start bubbling back up again. And I personally felt a lot clearer when I journaled on like things that I was feeling, and I did like stream consciousness writing. Have you played around with that a little bit?
100%. And my like inner healing coincided with my breakup, actually. So when I got out of my relationship, I kind of was like in the dumps. I was heartbroken, and I just looked at it in the sense of, am I going to keep repeating the cycles here, or am I going to do the inner healing work that I actually need to do, that I was running away from? And it started off with me journaling, and it was kind of both for helping me to overcome the people pleasing, as well as helping me to manage my ADHD, because I overthink so much. It's crazy, and it's like my brain works so fast. And with journaling, I now journal every single day. It allows me to just have that mental clarity. And like you say, when you are a people pleaser, your inner voice becomes silent and it's almost dormant for a while. And it's not until you're able to like journal, or even if it's like putting yourself first and just going, right, I'm going to set these boundaries for myself, even if it's just like cutting out an hour of a day for yourself, just to be like, I'm going to go for a walk, and just putting those boundaries into place for yourself. It's not until you do that, that's when like your voice starts to come back, and then you like start to feel confident in yourself, and then you start to go, oh, actually, I'm reassured as to who I am, because I've done the work to just sit on and reflect what makes me happy and what actually brings me joy in life.
Yeah, you've given yourself the space to even find out what that is, if you know, especially if it's a little bit buried, and then gradually you just the lights start coming back on. But that's amazing that you've been through that process, and especially with music, I think music has the power, like no other really, to be like alchemical, because it's so, I feel like music is so directly, it speaks so directly to and from our souls, like the sounds that we choose to use in music, the sounds that we like, that we latch onto, that make us feel certain things. It's so visceral, and it's not, you can intellectualize it, of course, but there's just something very almost primal. Like if you think about the earliest humans, you know, we've always had like where you would have drum circles and dancing, and you would play music when a tribe member died, or like when there was a hunt, or it's so embedded like in our DNA. And I think that's still the case, like when you listen to a song that will like really latch onto an emotion, even if it's instrumental and there's no lyrics, you still feel it.
And that, I think you touched on a great word there, visceral. It's like you have this visceral feeling when it comes to sound, and at least that's how I have understood my sound as an artist, is like going back and realizing what is it that actually influences me, and what is it that draws me to music. And it is the visceral feeling of it, and feeling connected by things that remind you of a certain time in life, or being able to tell a story, and essentially like transporting you into that feeling. And I believe it's quite intentional in all the songs that I make, that I'm really emoting the feeling that I had when I initially wrote that song. And that's like really important for me, because like I mentioned with like Michael Jackson, with Beyonce, Whitney Houston, or like Tyler the Creator, these storytellers, they're being intentional about the story that they're putting across with their music. And for me, that's like something that's really important.
Yeah, amazing. Well, on that note, we're going to hear your first track, which is called I Love You.
Yes.
So this is Shalini with I Love You on Alpha Sessions.
Girl, this song is for you, my inner child that was too loud and was misunderstood. Don't listen to that fool, let me protect you and listen to our truth, 'cause I am here to tell you, don't let anyone stop you. There's no need to doubt your inner child, 'cause I am proud of you. Don't let them distract you. I accept us now, so be loud, 'cause I love you. I love you. As long as I got you, make it through, and no one can hurt. I love time for healing. All of your scars, accept all your flaws, and seek forgiveness. This is our time, a new beginning. Let the love flow in, 'cause I love you. I love you. As long as I got you, we'll make it through, and no one can hurt you. I love you. As long as I got you, we'll make it through, and no one can hurt you. No, I love you. I love you.
The Alpha Sessions.
Welcome back. This is Alpha Sessions, and I'm here with Shalini. She just played her magical track, I Love You. Beautiful, beautiful voice. Beautiful track, first of all.
Thank you.
First listen, I'm a real lyric person, so I'm very, I latch onto a lyric. It's the first thing that kind of pricks up my ears. And listening to this, it sounds like, continuing on from our chat, like you're obviously someone that's done a lot of inner work and a lot of inner excavation, particularly the inner child comes up in this. Have you done like much kind of inner child work, like journal? We've already talked about journaling, but kind of there's an exercise that I did once, and it's you write a letter. You imagine yourself at 80, and then you write a letter from your 80-year-old self to your current self, and then you do the same thing with 8-year-old you. Like, are you familiar with that kind of like two-way kind of time travel communication?
I've probably done it not knowing that there's an actual practice of it.
Sure.
But it was more for me, like I mentioned before, like I went through this breakup, and I just kept looking at these breakups and going, the same thing keeps happening. I keep repeating this cycle of, I didn't feel good enough. I was feeling like almost like hopeless, and it was like, well, why am I feeling this way? And I just kind of sat in these feelings and really would like genuinely sit in front of a mirror and like look at myself and be like, well, why am I so like negative towards myself? And it's because I had been people pleasing, and it was because I'd been trying to do everything to make everyone else accept me as a person, as opposed to just really accepting myself and really just being like, okay, my inner child is crying out to be creative. I'm such a creative person. And it was like I was doing everything that wasn't creative. I was like working in policy, which I loved, very passionate about still, and working in like property and doing all sorts of different things, but it wasn't serving the part of myself that just felt empty.
Yeah.
And I needed to just be creative. I needed to like sit down and be like, it really doesn't matter what everyone else thinks, because you have to put yourself first.
Yeah.
And yeah, just set those boundaries for yourself.
Yeah. Did you find that those boundaries were kind of easy to set because you were kind of buoyed by this kind of newfound craving for independence, or was it like a process that you kind of had to go through? It was a process.
It's been like a whole year since like me and my ex broke up, and then it was more me like them being like, right, I need to figure out how to heal myself. And it really started off with me doing like somatic exercises.
I love
like,
somatic healing. It's incredible.
It is really
incredible.
It makes such a difference, and just also like self-soothing and me reminding myself to be kind to myself. I think that's like the most important thing, and I bang on about it all the time, is like just being kind and compassionate. I think we as humans naturally are very hard on ourselves, and we constantly put ourselves down for just the little mistakes we make. But at the end of the day, we're human. We're not perfect.
Yeah, and you'll notice those mistakes more than everybody else.
Oh,
Like
fully.
there's a phrase, I can't remember who said it, but it's a phrase that I really like, where someone's talking about the years of their life that they go through, and they're like, you know, at 25 I used to like worry what everybody thought of me,
Yeah.
and then
like
like
that.
at 60 I realized like no one was thinking about me at all, like the
Yeah.
whole time. You're always going to be way more kind of I guess self-absorbed than like anyone else is
Yeah.
on you. So that, I find that is a really liberating way for me to think about it, because
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just like, I just need to get out of my head about it. And is this decision going to matter in a week, or is it going to matter in a month? And if it is, then I'm like, okay, then it's worth putting the
Yeah.
time into. I'll journal on it. I'll talk to my friends.
Yeah.
I'll meditate on it. If not, just kind of trying to go with my gut a little
Yeah.
bit, and kind of have, I find I'm a lot quicker at making decisions because I'm not just flip-flopping and deliberating so much.
No,
It's
definitely.
like you're following an impulse, and I find that's kind of what you're doing in music as well. Like
Yeah.
you'll know from when you're producing a track or finding a melody or a lyric that you really like, you know when you catch on to something and you're like it makes you curious. It's just that little thing that like pricks your ears up,
Yeah.
and even though it might not technically make sense to have, I don't know, if you're making like very R&B influenced music, to
Yeah.
have like a big rock guitar sound on it,
Yeah.
or like Bangra drums or something, it might not make logical, like, well, how's that going to work? But to you, it might seem like it's a very natural impulse.
Yeah.
And then you make it, you kind of allow it to come through you, like
Yeah,
from
definitely. And I think that's the great thing about music, like you say, it's like following that impulse. And really, when it comes to like songwriting, and like when I'm just making music in general, I find, well, with all of these songs I wrote like within the matter of like being in an emotion. And I remember when I wrote I Love You, I just remember writing in my journal acceptance, and then I wrote the whole song, and it was just like, it was like me building the picture around this one thing that I was feeling. And then with the next song, which is Driving Home, it's like the same thing. I went over to my friend Song's house, Song and Matt, who produced the track. We just like sat there, we were just like playing around with guitars, and then I had this song I found that I was like, I really love this as like a reference track, and it was actually a boom bap beat.
Oh, no way.
Because I love like the boom bap jazzy sort of vibes, and I was like, let's build it around that. And when I like think back to the fact that was built off like a boom bap like reference, and like we just built it around that, and it was just us like having fun and like jamming and like not even thinking about it. It's just like, where did that come from, sort of thing. So I definitely think it helps with, at least this is something I'm working on currently, with trying to fix my need for perfection. And we all suffer with perfection being in a world of like social media, because we're constantly like thinking about, oh, does my makeup look good? It's like even me going, oh, I need to top up my lip gloss. Does it really matter?
It's all like how you're being perceived, I think.
is.
I think there's so many, like, especially the generation below, who are just so aware of how they're being perceived. I mean, I think everybody is, like, on social media. But I heard a really good saying once about perfectionism, which is this: it's just fear in a fancy mink coat and heels. Like, it's just, you're just basically afraid of what people are gonna think about. Again, it's kind of the people pleasing element.
It is.
Threads back through that, and it's like, I feel like perfectionism is often rewarded as like a good character trait in the workplace.
Really is.
Like, you look at, you know, you go for a job interview and they're like, so what's your worst trait? And you're like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Like, I care too much. I'm going to spend too long at the job. And it's like, it's kind of rewarded as though, you know, because to serve the purpose of that company, it might be the case. But on a personal level, I think it just like, it's so toxic.
It is. It almost detaches you from that creative spark that you have in yourself and that impulse, because if you're too busy like focused on being a perfectionist and trying to make sure that everything sounds right, you don't find the beauty in the mistakes. And it's like you just need to kind of let yourself be free and be like, I don't care, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
Because you never know what you're going to make.
Yeah.
And I think, like, with me, at the moment, I'm trying to, like, untrain the perfectionist in myself. And it's really funny when you look at it from, like, a creative point of view. Because it's suffocating when you're just constantly thinking. I mean, having ADHD, the overthinking and the perfectionism kind of goes hand in hand.
Sure.
But it's like taking a step back and like reminding myself, like, as an artist, as a songwriter, if I don't allow myself to just feel, I'm not going to write great music. I'm not going to make great music, because all of the songs I do write come in the feelings.
Sure. Yeah.
And all of the songs that I love that I've written have come from me, like, being sat down crying, or like me being like so pent up with like anger, which is like my last song, Wildfire. I was like having an argument with someone and I was like, no, I don't agree with what you're saying. And then I just like started writing it and the song came about, and it's like,
yeah, from an organic place.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to hear both of those. But first, we're going to hear your song, Driving Home. This is Shalini with Driving Home on Alpha Sessions.
You said call if you need me. Pick up the phone. You ignored me completely. Left me alone. Where you at? I'm not sure. It's not the same as before. My car overthinking. I'm driving home. All of the stuff you said, did you mean it? Can't trust a single thing out your mouth. All of the times we shared, did you feel it? 'Cause in the end you're gonna let me down. I don't know where to go. I thought you were my home. You said call if you need me. Pick up the phone. You ignored me completely. Left me alone. Where you at? I'm not sure. It's not the same as before. My car overthinking. I'm driving home. I don't know where to go. I thought you were my home. Setting me up, knocking me down. Is there something in the water? Pulling me under, you're drowning me out. Where you at? I'm not sure. It's not the same as before. Where you at? I'm not sure. It's not the same as before. Where you at? I'm not sure. It's not the same. Pick up the phone. You said call if you need me. Pick up the phone. You ignored me completely. Left me alone. Where you at? I'm not sure. It's not the same as before. My car overthinking. I'm driving home. You said call if you need me. Pick up the phone. You ignored me completely. Left me alone. Where you at? I'm not sure. It's not the same as before. My car overthinking. I'm driving home.
The Alpha Sessions.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Alpha Sessions, and we're with Shalini. She just played her beautiful track, Driving Home. Sounds like this one was kind of seeded from the breakup that we were talking about earlier in the conversation. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I mean, I really was avoiding writing breakup songs when I initially started to songwrite, and I think it was, for me, because I'm such a visceral feeling person and I'm overly emotional, I'm very sensitive, it took me so long to actually be able to write a breakup song. But when I met up with Song and Matt, the producers for Driving Home, I was like to them, I don't want it to be a breakup song where you're just sad and you're crying, because at that time I was like, I have too much anxiety to think about that. So we were like, well, let's just flip it. Let's make it a beat that's like fun.
Yeah.
And it's almost like melancholy. Like, it's to me, I listen to it and I'm like, oh my God, it's a bop. Like, I could play that at a festival and like, I just want people to like be like banging their heads along to it and just like having fun.
That's like the alchemical process, I think. That's what's so cool about what you're able to do with music, is you can take a situation which you were finding really difficult to deal with at the time, and then make it into something beautiful that gives other people joy. That's the kind of magical potential of it, I think.
I'm just such a huge fan of music, and I feel like I geek out over so many songwriters and singers, and just even hearing the instruments. And I don't know whether in the instrumental you'll hear it enough, but it's like in the bridge, like a saxophone comes in, and it's like every time I hear that, it makes me so excited, because it's like, usually for me, like when I hear a saxophone, I think of like Stevie Wonder, and Stevie Wonder's like super upbeat, and I love like the grooviness of like a saxophone, and even like the guitar like melody in that song is so good. Like, song literally was just like sat there like, oh wait, I've got this melody, let me like pop it in, it's so good. I was like, oh my God.
Are you really hands-on into the production of it as well? It sounds like you are.
Like, so much so. It's to the point where I'm like, okay, I feel this right now, I want this bass line here and I want that there. And it's like, I'm grateful that I found producers like Song and Matt, and then my producer Chris, who produced Wildfire, where we actually are collaborating, and it's really to serve the purpose of the song. And it's like I said at the very beginning, like, I really feel the need to express myself. So if I'm able to also be involved with the production side of things and be like, oh, I'm feeling like this in this moment, so let's like add the breaths in, like you'll hear that in Wildfire. I literally just sat in Chris's studio and I was like, Chris, I think I should breathe. And he was like, yeah, go for it.
Again, visceral thing, like visceral human thing, not like overthought, not overproduced, not like overconceptualized, just something you were feeling in the moment.
Exactly.
Sounds like you're doing an amazing job of kicking the people pleasing to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a very organic process. How did you meet your two collaborators?
So I've been lucky. I actually met both of them at open mics. Song and Matt I met at an open mic in Camden, and that was in January. And when I sang my song, it was really funny. I think I'm very chaotic. I don't know if you can tell. I feel like I've been trying to keep it together whilst talking.
You're doing an amazing job. Trust.
But when I was at that open mic, I literally was like, I don't know, I think I like left my bag and all my stuff and like my phone by Song and Matt, and I was like, I'm just gonna leave all my things here and I need to go somewhere. And they were like, okay. And I just like dropped all my stuff off, like just being loads of like energy and chaos, and like came back and like spoke to Song, was like, oh, you're a producer. And then that's how that came about. Just like an accident of me just being like, oh, I want to sign up for this open mic, I'm just going to leave my stuff here. And then we just got to talking. And then Chris I met at another open mic at Sound Library, which is in South London, I can't remember where. But I was performing there. And then me and Chris got to talking after my performance, and we just got on really well. And I was like, let's make some music.
Yeah. And was it kind of a natural, you found like you just vibed on the same type of music, same things like excited both of you?
For me, what I find more important is like Song and Matt, for instance, they're very much like indie rock. And I'm not indie rock. Like that's the music they make. But what's more important to me, which is going back to the visceral feeling, is if I get on with people as like friends.
Sure.
And that's the thing, is like me, Song and Matt just get on really well, and we just are like constantly taking the mic during our sessions, and it doesn't feel like serious, it's just like fun.
Yeah.
Same with me and Chris. When me and Chris first had our like little introduction like Zoom call, we ended up being on the call for like 3 hours and just like getting to know each other,
just chatting,
and just and just chatting. And it's like every time I go to the studio now with like Chris, it's like the other day I was just like lying on the floor recording my vocals, and I was like, I need a nap, Chris.
I'm such a fan of a floor vocal though. There's something just when you're in kind of a frivolous headspace.
Yeah.
I really feel like sometimes that's where the best ideas come from, because you're not overthinking everything, and you're giving your brain that space to play, and it's like we were saying, you're giving your brain the space to just be who you are.
And this is what has helped me the most. It's kind of full circle here with the allowing myself to play, is connecting back to my inner child and letting my inner child guide me. And it's more like you say, like just playing about with it instead of thinking. And I mean, actually, when I was lying on the floor at Chris's studio, I had the worst anxiety. And I was just like, Chris, I need a nap. And he was like, you nap. I'm going to build the beat.
Yeah.
So I was just there like napping, like being like, And it's just like, it's nice to be comfortable with your producer. I think that's the most important thing for anyone like starting out, trying to like figure out what to do. If you're able to find a producer that you get on with and you can just be yourself around, it also creates the environment where you can just play and just be yourself, and like you're not, it doesn't force you to overthink because you feel comfortable.
Yeah, you feel like you're being held in that space, and you're kind of just enjoying yourself and letting whatever comes through come through, rather than being like, we have to get this track like down today, and then there's, it's all very kind of regimented. I think like you give your brain the space to play, and the rest will kind of take care of itself in a way.
And it's also nice that like all 4 of us kind of have different genre backgrounds, because Chris is more, I'd say he's like pop, and like he loves like K-pop. But I mean, he has done loads of neo soul and rap and stuff. But it's cool that we all love different types of music, because it means that we can like challenge each other and be like, oh well, what if we like brought this element into it?
Yeah.
And then it kind of allows me to just be more expressionate, as opposed to just like trying to put myself into a box and be focused on, I'm creating this like in this genre, and I'm just like focusing on the feeling. You've
just freed yourself. You feel free. Amazing stuff. Well, we're now going to listen to your last track, which is called Wildfire.
Don't you see, it's greater than you and me. It's a God-forsaken prophecy. You can't fall into the dark, be strong. You need to think about your words and your actions. They cause certain reactions in a generation driven by anger. I wonder, is this the start of a new villain? Or please don't add fuel to the fire. We don't need to spread hate like wildfire. Just retire, retire, retire your pride tonight. Why can't you hear me? Stop letting your ego dictate all this evil fate. What do you have to gain? Please don't add fuel to the fire. We don't need to spread hate like wildfire. Just retire, retire, retire your pride tonight.
The Alpha Sessions.
Stunning track. There's a lot I want to ask you about this song. Namely listening to the kind of story through the song. It's sparked by the kind of violence that we're been seeing for quite some time in the world, the unrest and the division. Was there a particular event that sparked it, or a statement that you heard? Like, when did this song come about for you?
I wrote this song back in February, and it was initially it started from an argument I had with someone, and it was someone saying essentially like an eye for an eye, and I was like, no, why would you try and solve violence with violence? To me, that doesn't make sense. I am very anti-violence. Obviously, there's a difference between like self-defense and all of that, but in the regards that what we're seeing like globally is there's so much unrest because there is a lack of transparency. People are living out of fear because they don't have answers, and they don't have answers because we've been lied to by media platforms for years and years and years, and it's like a constant build up of fear and anxiety and people now becoming reactive. And with everything that was going on, like, I mean, initially there was like unrest in India, and then there was unrest in like Yemen, and then you saw everything going on with Israel and Palestine, and then there was Congo, and it's like so much is occurring. There's way more awareness now with social media, but are we really being aware in the right ways? Are we all just being fed stories to just exacerbate the fear? And that's where I see it going. And that's why, like I say, don't add fuel to the fire. We don't need to spread hate like wildfire, because the way I see it is through everyone's fear and through the media essentially capitalizing over people's fear, you're just spreading more and more hate.
And causing more division. And then you begin over time, it's like this stacking of like fear, which then is reflected in society as anger and rage, which then causes more anxiety, which causes more fear. It's like
It's a
this
vicious
kind
cycle.
of this loop that carries on. And I think as well, with there being so much information available like online, and from the rise of everything through just the sheer volume of it through the internet, to AI, etc., it becomes harder and harder to kind of pick out what is the truth and what is manufactured for somebody's gain. Do you feel like, if you look back to the what I think is the last true subculture movement, which was back in the 70s with the like anti-war movement, the anti-nuclear movement, there seemed to be something in society and in the arts which could really galvanize proper change, like you could really unite people. Do you feel like that's still possible now through the arts, or do you feel like it's, because I'm kind of on the fence between, well, because we have the internet as a way to spread information faster and more prolifically than we ever have, like that it could be a huge asset, but in other ways it's so diluted as well, and it can be so confusing. Like, what do you think about that?
I think the difference we see from like the 70s till now is the way in which the music industry operates. And it's like there was a lot more freedom to be able to speak out on political issues than there is now, because so many artists are afraid to say the wrong thing in case they're going to get cut by a label. And so many artists are afraid to like speak out because then there's cancel culture.
Yes.
And it's like, as a British Indian, I would obviously like side with just being, it's just more about like being thoughtful and like making sure that you're looking at everything from all aspects and just being intentional about what you want to get across. And like my message is very much like, we don't need to spread hate. And it's like when you see people that look like you dying and like being murdered on a daily basis, it really hurts. And it's like at this point it's not even about like I want to like be seen as this thing. It's more for me, I'm like, we're in a humanitarian crisis.
It's the humanity seems to have been lost on so many in so many areas, and it's the question is like, how can we bring everybody's focus back to that? And that's where I feel like the arts have a massive role to play if people are brave enough to speak out and speak honestly, and we can have an actual conversation between people that have different opinions without either side being demonized.
I think the one way that I see the arts doing that is by going back to rebuilding communities, because I think that's what we've lost with social media. Obviously, social media initially was to connect people globally, but in actuality, it's causing greater disconnect and segregation, because it's the subculture now is cancel culture.
Yeah.
And it's trying to point the finger at everyone else and be like, you're wrong, when there is no like right and wrong really. Like as humans, we all are learning. We're constantly learning, and we all need to take accountability for ourselves. And it's like when I went through my breakup, I could have been like, oh, this happened with my boyfriend. He was like, did it? But no, I was like, no, I need to sit down and take accountability for why I'm being a people pleaser.
Yeah. Well, why did I put up with a situation for so long that wasn't like, what was it in me that was making me stay in this situation?
Exactly.
Or
And then
I
we
agree.
just need to have those communities where people feel safe and comfortable enough to be like vulnerable, to be able to just say, hey, maybe I messed up, maybe I was wrong, but can you help me get back to a place where I want to be better? And that's where the humanity is. It's like being vulnerable, being able to be transparent and open and honest, and just, we don't need to demonize people, as you say. It's just, there's no need. We're all learning, we're all human, and we all just need to take a moment to just be like, whoa, what is going on?
Yeah, I think from listening to your music as well, the one of the really brilliant things about it is you can hear the vulnerability that comes through. Like even with this track, you know, the kind of intensity builds up through the track, through the beats and through the little breaths. Like it's all kind of like, even the reverbs elongated towards the end. It's all kind of amplifying up to this kind of climactic part, but all the way through you can hear the vulnerability in your voice, and that is, I think that's kind of the key. Like nobody wants to go first, but if someone would just make themselves vulnerable enough to say like, I don't know about this, can anyone help? Or like, can I like help educate me? Like I will educate myself, but help educate me. I want to hear about like what your side has to say. This is where I'm at. And once one person goes first, it usually softens everybody else, and you know, the whole thing can just kind of simmer down. But I catch that like through your music, and it's really beautiful, so thank you for that.
I'm still learning. I'm still very much trying to figure things out myself, but the one thing that I've always told myself is to just be as authentic and vulnerable, and let that guide me in everything that I do. So at the moment, I'm just using a backing track, and it's because I really want to make sure I get those feelings across with the songs. But yeah, I'm really excited.
You're sticking to the true essence of yourself. I like that.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, we will close out on that. Catch Shalini at Far East Festival, and you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, social media. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It's been lovely to chat to you and hear your amazing music.
I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The Alpha Sessions.